Now, you've been begging me to do this recap, knowing how I feel about this man. Don't tell me you weren't trying to answer my call. Despite how I feel, I must admit that The Diary of a Mad Black Woman, the play, and the movie are both classics. When I first watched the play back in the early 2000s, it was my first Tyler Perry play that I watched, and it became a comfort watch for me. There are so many one-liners that I still use to this day.
Get off the bus, Rosa. Get off the bus, Rosa. Let's see how much he owes you, then let's see how much he owes you. You've been dealing with his attitude, having sex with him when he wanted to. Was the sex good?
Nope, not lately.
Major deduction.
Hello.
Damn, can you turn the dress off? That big old green dress looking like a can of Sprite.
And while I'll always prefer the play over the movie, even I must admit that the movie A Diary of a Mad Black Woman is a Tyler Perry classic. So with that being said, while watching this movie, I noticed some things, and I have my thoughts. But before we get to that, it's time to recap. So let's get into it. Okay, so boom. As the movie opens, we meet Helen and Charles. Charles was being given an award for the Entrepreneur of the Year. As they walk into the function, there's a mystery woman eyeing Charles up and down. Helen doesn't notice this, but this is a Tyler Perry film. This is definitely gonna come back up later. But that night, everything went good. Everything was normal until they came home and Charles switched up. He became cold, distant, and just plain disrespectful to Helen. Now, Helen tries to ignore this and even suggests that they go upstairs, spend a little time, maybe draw a bath, but Charles wanted zero parts.
Who is she?
When you get a job and pay one of these bills, then you can ask me questions.
I am still your wife.
Now, Helen is always the one to try to appease Charles. She asks him what can she do to make things better, how can they fix things, but it's very clear that Charles is checked out. He leaves that night and doesn't come back home, and to make matters worse, the next morning was their anniversary. Now, Helen is still going through the motions, still pretending that things are fine. In her mind, she thinks that they can eventually get back to how they were. So she brings him lunch at work, but when she's there, she runs into Charles and the mystery woman from the night before. Her name was Brenda, and as soon as Helen sees her, she immediately feels that Brenda is the other woman.
Is that her? Don't play games with me. Tell me, Charles, is that her?
Thank you. I'll see you at home.
See, I would have snatched that lunch and went on about my business. But Helen goes home to find some movers moving her things without her knowledge. So she goes inside and asks the housekeeper what's going on. And the housekeeper tells her that Charles had called to have her things cleared out. So in the closet, there was this brand new wardrobe. So Helen assumed that this is the way that Charles was trying to make up with her, or trying to apologize for how he's been treating her. She thought that he brought her a whole new wardrobe to apologize. But no, that wasn't the case. Later that night, Charles came back to their home with a special guest, Brenda, from earlier. And surprise, surprise, Brenda wasn't just the other woman. She was Helen's replacement.
There's no easy way to say this, but our marriage has run its course. Don't act so surprised. I mean, I haven't touched you in a year.
Charles, what am I supposed to do without you?
Look, you're a bright girl. You'll figure it out.
Now, Helen, rightfully so, is distraught by this. She doesn't know what to do without Charles, and she begs him to reconsider. And then Brenda has the nerve to pour salt on an actively bleeding wound.
Charles, please. Please tell me you're not one of those weak begging sisters.
Brenda.
Now, Helen tells Charles that he's not leaving, and she was right, because she was. Charles was kicking her out of the house. So now Helen had to realize that not only was she losing her marriage, she was losing her home, making her homeless, and the fact that Charles not only had one child by Brenda, but he had two. So Helen refuses to leave, but Charles physically grabs her and kicks her out of their home. And my thing is, as a woman, as a human, Brenda isn't a little bit nervous that one day this could be her? I mean, make it make sense. The mover from earlier sees Charles putting Helen out, and so he offers to help her. But they end up driving endlessly for hours since Helen didn't have anywhere to go. Charles had isolated her from everyone that she knew. Her friends, her family, her mother, who was placed in a nursing home since Charles didn't want her living in the home with them. Eventually, the driver, Orlando, gets impatient and reminds her that he has better things to do with his time, which causes Helen to finally snap, and so she kicks him out of the truck. So eventually, Helen ends up in Madea's house where she receives a warm welcome.
I was in the neighborhood, and
You in the neighborhood. You live in a mansion on the other side of town. What the hell you doing in the ghetto? You ain't on that stuff, is you?
The next morning, when Helen comes down for breakfast, she runs into an old friend, Deborah, who had seen better days. They chat for a little bit, but eventually Deborah starts to feel that Helen is judging her, so she leaves. And while Helen was busy sleeping, Madea was doing some investigating. And by investigating, I mean she called Charles to get a little understanding. And now she had even more questions.
I called Charles this morning, and he told me that you and him is getting a divorce.
put me out of the house.
Who house?
Helen explains that the house was in Charles' name, and basically he owned everything. But Madea immediately catches on to the fact that she's hearing a lot of his and what belongs to Charles, and not enough of ours, plural. And then Helen reveals something else that sets Madea off.
Don't have any rights to the money.
No, right.
I signed a prenup.
What the hell you sign a prenup down to punch you in the face?
And now Madea was looking at Helen like, girl, what you been doing this entire time? And Helen revealed that she had been working, just not the kind of work that gets a paycheck.
What was you doing while he was working, huh?
Taking care of the house, cooking and cleaning.
Exactly. That sounds like a job to me. Let's see how much he owed you.
And if the totals weren't already adding up, there was another costly charge.
And I didn't tell you that he hit me.
Now, Helen believed that there was no way she would ever get anything from Charles, but Madea knew a way around that.
It can happen one of two ways. Huh? You can get it from his checking account voluntarily or his insurance policy, involuntary manslaughter. Which one is going to be?
And with that being said, Madea suggested that they go back to Helen's house and get a little understanding, or a little bit of straightening, if you know how Madea gets down. So they go to Helen's house and they get inside, and Madea has to basically urge Helen to get her things. And what confused me was that Helen was acting scared to touch her own stuff. Child, I would have been in that house like,
Started that damn company without me. Hell, I worked my ass off. Well, guess what, John? You're the motherfucking improper influence. Get your shit, and get out.
Helen goes down to the office to get some money out of this secret stash, but she gets stuck in her feelings when she sees an old photo of her and Charles. And as she's staring at this photo, Charles creeps in and catches her. At the same time, Brenda caught Madea upstairs in the closet. Madea was so busy trying to handle Brenda, she almost didn't notice Charles and Helen going at it downstairs. But conveniently, when Charles saw Madea with her peacemaker, he was no longer in a fighting mood. Christina threatens to call the police again, but Charles wanted zero parts and just wanted Helen and Madea to leave. Helen warns Charles that he's going to reap what he sows, and then she had the nerve to throw the money back in his face, like a dumbass.
Keep your money.
You crazy as hell.
Leave it.
I might leave some of it.
While Madea was still ready to set it off, Helen suggested that they leave, and Madea agreed, but she didn't go quietly.
No, I say half everything in here belongs to her. Which half do you want? You want this half? You want this half?
After all of this, they went to jail for a night. I would say it was worth it though. But when it was time to go in front of the judge, Madea saw a familiar face, and neither one of them were happy to see each other.
I'm placing you under house arrest.
You ain't finna put me on no house arrest, honey. I ain't finna deal with that.
It's either that or prison. What's your choice?
I'll take the house arrest.
Now, this is where we officially meet Brian and the kids. Brian and Deborah were married. Now, Brian was a lawyer, so Helen asked him if he would handle her divorce, and he agrees to. Now, as Helen and Brian are talking, Brian sees Orlando and greets him, and this is when Helen realized that she knows Orlando very well. Unfortunately, Helen was still pissed at him. I think her anger was a bit misplaced.
Just another bitter black woman, huh? Because now every man you meet is gonna have to pay for what he did.
You don't know anything about me.
I know I watched a man drag you out of a house and treat you like dirt.
Now, she did all that to come back and apologize 10 minutes later. And of course, is not a Tyler Perry film without a cookout and a dance break. We go back to Charles, who's meeting with a very demanding client. And it took me a minute to realize that this is the same guy that was in Daddy's Little Girls, and he's playing the same exact character. He goes by a different name, but he's playing the same exact character. Again, this is a Tyler Perry film. But his name is Jameson, and he definitely deserved to go down. But he was paying Charles a lot of money to make sure he wouldn't. And he basically demanded that Charles represent him. So time goes by and Helen starts looking for a job. She eventually makes her way over to visit her mother, Myrtle, at the nursing home. Now, while Helen was trying to hide all that was going on between her and Charles, her mother already knew the tea thanks to Madea. Helen confessed to Myrtle that she was hurt behind what Charles did to her, and instead of Myrtle comforting her, because obviously she was messed up behind what happened between her and Charles, she blamed her for placing her marriage before God. No empathy whatsoever. And then Myrtle blamed herself for making Helen too soft. She felt that by making her too soft, she wasn't able to stand on her own 2 feet and be a strong Black woman. The fact that Madea told Myrtle everything that she was going through with Charles and she still didn't have more empathy for her is wild. And not just being her mom, which of course she should feel some kind of way, but as a woman, and as a woman of a particular age, you can't see what all she's going through and how hard it is for her, but you blame her for placing her marriage before God. But you blame her for not being a strong Black woman. I think she's being as strong as she can be despite what's going on, okay? Now, while she did console her a little bit, I felt that she should have did that first instead of automatically saying what she did wrong. But some more time goes by and Helen finds a job as a waitress. She's starting to be more positive. She's starting to look at the glass as more half full and not half empty. One night as she's working, she waits on Orlando's table. And he wasn't trying to get a meal. He was trying to get her. And it's not a Tyler Perry film or a Black film without a church scene. Meanwhile, Jameson is still trying to get Charles to go along with his scheme, even though Charles is continuing to tell him that this would not work out in his best interests. But Jameson warns him that he better get off or something is going to happen. We fast forward again, and Helen is still doing good despite going back and forth with Charles about the divorce. One day, as Helen is walking home, she runs into Orlando again, who offers to give her a ride since it was raining outside. She reluctantly accepts, and he even offers to take her to get something to eat. Now, she was thinking he was going to take her to McDonald's, but he offered to take her to a jazz spot. And while Orlando is obviously feeling her, Helen is still hesitant. She's not willing to humor any man and disturb the peace that she's fought so hard to get. During dinner, Orlando reads Helen like a book, and it's the typical, I know you're scared. You've been through so much. I see that you're broken, and you've been hardened by the things that you've been through, but you just need a real man to love you. Shamar and this braided wig, Jesus. The wig budget couldn't have possibly been that bad. And you're in Atlanta, of all places. But they continue to have a good night. They even have a romantic little dance together. When Orlando brought her home, he asked Helen on an official date, but Helen immediately refused. But Orlando suggested that instead of immediately refusing his ask to take her out, that she actually give him a chance. Deborah stops by Brian's house to get a bite to eat. He told her that after she ate that she needed to get out of the house, and she reminded him that she didn't have anywhere to go and asked for his help. But Brian didn't want to help her since he tried to help her before and it didn't work out well. We also get a montage of Helen and Orlando getting closer. Brian came by Medea's house with his kids and he talked to Madea about Tiffany wanting to join the choir. Now, he was against this since he thought that by Tiffany joining the choir, that would lead her down the same road as her mother, Deborah. But Madea convinced him that wouldn't be the case. We jump 4 months ahead and Orlando and Helen are doing good. They're getting closer. And she keeps expecting him to mess up, but he doesn't. He remains consistent. Around this time, Orlando in his wig revealed to Helen that he loved her. And Helen realized that she never felt strongly for a man besides Charles. And baby, she must have really been in her feelings because she took her ass to the courthouse and told Charles that he could have everything. And Charles, of course, he felt like he'd won. And Brian thought Helen was crazy. Rightfully so.
Smart choice. Smart choice.
But karma came for that ass quick because Charles wasn't able to get Jameson off. And so in return, Jameson shot him. Now, homeboy was already a goner, so I guess Jameson decided that he might as well take Charles out. Orlando told Helen that he loved her, and while she was hesitant to say it, she eventually tells him that she loves him too. And when she woke up the next morning, she found a huge rock on her wedding finger. Now, Helen was overcome with emotion, and before she could say anything, she noticed on the TV behind Orlando that Charles had been shot in court. So she immediately ran off to see about him. Now, Brian, Brenda, and Helen go to the hospital to see about Charles. And as they're there, the doctor tells them that things are looking good and he might not be able to walk. And she needs someone to make a call. And since Helen was legally still his wife, she was asked to make the call. And Helen chooses to save Charles against Brenda's wishes. And Helen decides to stick by him. For what? I don't know. I don't even think she knew at this point. Charles is eventually released from the hospital, so he goes back to their marital home. And it was around this time that Helen started to experience rage and anger. And when I really think about it, this was probably the only time she's ever felt safe enough to express those feelings around Charles, since he wasn't able to retaliate. And having Charles still talking shit was not helping.
You don't see it?
No.
You ain't good for nothing. Find my bank statement and get the accountant on the phone. Then call Calvin and tell him to get over here and you can leave.
And then, my favorite part.
Look, just get the hell out. I ask you to do one little thing and you can't even do that after 18 years. Get out!
And now it was Charles' turn to feel how it felt to be treated the same way that he treated Helen. And now it was Helen's turn to release everything she felt without interruption.
Let me explain something to you. Old Helen is gone. And you will not talk to me like that.
Helen.
Shut up!
Child, Helen left that man in their house for 2 whole days. I know he had the beginning stages of a bed sore or a rash or something. And if that wasn't bad enough, she gave him a bath to remember.
Stop! Hey, stop!
Listen, the way he landed in that tub was hilarious. He really shouldn't have survived it. And then Helen sat at this table eating that dry-ass salad as she talked king shit to Charles.
Are you hungry? Oh. Maybe you should go into the kitchen and get yourself something to eat then, huh?
It's crazy how he was crying about Brenda when she literally left him for dead and drained his bank account.
Christina! Christina's gone. Your little tramp didn't leave any money to pay her, so she left. Just like your little slut. She cleaned out your bank account. All of it. You tried to keep it from me, and she took it all.
And now that Helen had let some of that rage out of her system, she decided that it was finally time to go back to see Orlando after 3 whole weeks. And rightfully so, he was pissed. She tells him that she has a lot going on, that she's thinking about getting back with Charles, and Orlando refuses to accept this.
That man did everything in his power to try and break you, but you made it. You found strength and passion for life you never had before. Why would you turn back?
And of course, Orlando plays his role. He continues telling her that she's sabotaging herself, that she's a good woman, but she's still afraid, and how she needs to give him a chance, and that she should just trust him. But me personally, this is all a red flag because honestly, they were moving way too fast. She was about to hop out of a marriage and go right into a next one without taking that time to heal. And she really needed to heal. By the way she was going upside Charles' head, she definitely needed to heal. But basically, after Helen rejects him, Orlando gets upset and he leaves. The next day, Helen brings Myrtle by to see Madea, and while they're there, Orlando comes up. Now, Helen tries to brush this off and tries to jump to the next subject, but Madea wasn't having that. Helen insists that she's only focused on Charles. Madea brings up a point about how you know when you're over someone. If you have a chance to get back at them and you don't take that chance, that's when you know that you're really over them. And Helen clearly wasn't over it. And this is when Myrtle suggested Helen forgive Charles, not for him, but for herself. We fast forward to Brian driving down the street with Tiffany, and as they're driving, they see Deborah in front of a house. Tiffany tells him to stop the car and asks him if she can talk to Deborah, and he agrees to let her. She asks Deborah to come see her sing at the church. Helen returns home to find Charles in the same spot that she left him. He revealed to her that he was now able to feel on his left side. He tells her that he feels that he doesn't have anyone and that everyone that he thought was in his corner has left him. And what really upsets him now is the fact that he treated Helen so bad. He realizes that he really hurt her, and he also realizes that she's taking that anger that he once showed her out on him. He tells her that she has a good heart and she's a good woman, and he asks her not to be like him. And he also apologizes to her for everything that he'd ever done.
For everything that I have ever done wrong to you, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
And with this apology, Helen's able to let go of her anger, let go of her rage, and nurse him back to health. Same time, Deborah goes into rehab to get sober. We fast forward again to Tiffany singing her solo at church, and Deborah comes through to watch her sing, and she even sings with her. After church, everyone goes to Madea's to eat, and in front of everyone, Helen tells Charles that she loves him and that she will always consider him a friend. Couldn't be me. And asks for his forgiveness and a divorce. She doesn't even wait for him to sign the papers. She gets up and tells him that she's going to find her man. Helen goes to Orlando's job, and mind you, he's a welder, so she's running up in this warehouse with no protection, no nothing. But she finds him, confesses her love, and they make up. And everyone claps and hollers. Realistically, they would have told him to get back to work and told her to get out of there. But this is a Tyler Perry film, and this is just how things go. But yeah, that was the end of the movie, and here are my final thoughts. Now, when we look at Helen's story, we really see the 5 stages of grief. She went through denial, holding on, waiting for the marriage to get better, hoping that she would get the old Charles back. She went through bargaining, trying to figure out what she could do, trying to figure out how she could fix things, what she could change about herself. Then she went through depression, losing her identity, her confidence, her foundation. But the stage that she never really went through was anger. Not until Charles was paralyzed. It was only then that he couldn't hurt her anymore, financially, emotionally, physically, that she really felt safe enough to do so. Or maybe it wasn't until then that she just really realized how bad Charles did her, and she accepted everything that she had endured in that marriage. Either way, that was a moment that she was finally able to feel instead of just survive or go through the motions. And listen, I know we all love a good romance, love a good comeback, but if we're being honest, Helen and Orlando were moving way too fast. And she jumped right into a new relationship without working on herself, learning herself as a single woman, just coming back to herself. She didn't get that opportunity to do that. She was already kind of jumping into a new thing, a new relationship, learning a new person. And you really need that time after leaving a relationship to just learn who you are. She still had raw wounds that she hadn't worked through. She still had anger that was sitting on the surface. And we saw that by the way she was beating up Charles all up and through that house. And no shade, but Orlando didn't deserve to take on all of that baggage. Helen needed that time to process and heal herself by herself. And as for Charles, he was the typical abusive, cheating husband in a Tyler Perry production. We didn't get a background or any context as of why he was acting like this towards Helen. From what we saw, she did nothing but love him, try to encourage him, trying to work with him to get things back to the way they were. But Charles wanted zero parts of that. He humiliated her, kicked her out of their home, made her suffer in all ways, financially, physically. I mean, he stressed her out so much that she wasn't able to carry their kids. He brought another woman into her home. I mean, he did so much. And while eventually he came around and he apologized, that apology only came after he was paralyzed and had to depend on Helen. After he realized that everyone he thought had his back or was in his corner left him, and Helen was the only one standing. So in the end, I'm glad that Helen walked away and that she got her closure. And now we have to talk about Tyler Perry and this wig budget child. And besides the wig budget, Tyler has always been known to cut a little corner or two because the house that they filmed in, that was Helen and Charles' house, that was his mansion back in the day. So I guess he was like, look, we need a mansion for Helen and Charles. We just gonna film in my house. See, the man has always been cheap. But for the life of me, I will never understand the wigs because you're in Atlanta, the lace front capital. Like, I know you can hire the talent to get better wigs. I mean, it can't be that expensive. But despite all that, the wigs, the production shortcuts, the Tyler Perry tropes that never die, this movie is still a classic. But the play will always be my jam. I feel like it's just so much more hilarious than the film itself. And I guess because it's just so much more freedom when you do a play, but I rewatched the play just to see the difference, and I'm still rooting for the play. Like, the play is just so much more funny than a movie. But anyway, that's it for this review. Please like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. As for the next recap, it's time to talk about season 2 of Being Mary Jane. And it's free on YouTube to watch. So you got all week to catch up. And next Sunday, you better answer my call. Talk to you later. Bye.